This is The Guardian.
Hello, I'm Faye Carruthers and welcome to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Could Group D of next year's European Championships be the definition of the law of sod as England draw Wales, the Netherlands and France? We'll round up the weekend's WSL and Championship results, nibble away at the League Cup quarter-final draw, as well as focus on some of the managerial changes over the past week. And look at that, on our last pod before the winter break, I've managed not to shove as many Christmas puns into the intro as possible and not mention to pow. Ho, ho, ho. All that, plus we'll take your questions, and that's today's Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Suzy Wrack, you jingle-belled out yet?
Do I look very jingle-belled out? That's a stupid thing to say on a podcast, isn't it? I'm sat in my front room because I'm redecorating my office. So I'm sat in front of the sparkly Christmas tree and a Merry Christmas neon sign. So I don't think I'm very Christmased out yet. I can't wait. I can't wait for the last game of football that I'm going to by Arsenal Bayern and then freedom.
You literally have baubles coming out of your head. It's quite a sight. Marva Kreel, look at that timing. Merry Christmas to you. Finally an Everton win for you to talk about.
I know, the timing. And I got asked before we even knew the result. I think I got asked expecting a battering again, because that seems to be my role on this pod. But no, I'm here with smiles.
I think we had faith in you. That's what I think. Carla Ward, or should I say Naughty Elf?
Naughty Elf, yes. We love it, honestly. It's the best time of the year, right? So, it's been one of those every night. What do we do? Wake up, first thing he says is, what's Naughty Elf done, Mum? So, yeah, it gets her out of bed in the morning.
Can't wait for that stage, / dreading it massively. Right, we will get onto the weekend's action very shortly, but let's start with a big Euro 2025 draw that happened in Switzerland on Monday evening. We were all looking out for England and Wales being drawn, and it was perhaps inevitable, wasn't it, that they'd end up meeting each other. Both drawn in a tricky Group D alongside France and the Netherlands. Before we discuss that, let's run through the other groups. In Group A, hosts Switzerland face Norway, Iceland and Finland. I mean, you literally couldn't write it, could you? Group B contains Spain, Portugal, Belgium and Italy. And Group C is Germany, Poland, Denmark and Sweden. What do you make of England's chances, Suzy? I mean, look, we know both the Netherlands and France pretty well. Wales, close neighbours, which always kind of means an unpredictable game. But I don't know, I was a bit disappointed by the draw for many different reasons.
I think they've used up a lot of their luck on the Euros last time out, where the draw was kind and they didn't get any major players down with COVID, just Serena and Hannah Hampton, I think, compared to some of the other teams. A lot of luck has been used up. It's not the easiest of draws, but it's not impossible either. Beat France in Euro qualifying in France. And then I think back to the Nations League last year, lost a game to the Netherlands and then beat them 3-2 at home. So they're teams that they can beat, and I think it just depends on sort of form going into the tournament a little bit. But it's certainly not the kindest draw. It's certainly not the delicious Group A.
You could almost see Serena Wiegmann eye-rolling when she was asked about it, and obviously drawing her native Netherlands. A first Euros for Wales, though, Carla, which is very exciting. How do you think they're going to be feeling? Are they going to also be sitting there thinking, oh, come on, that could have been kinder?
No, I think they'll relish it. I think, they're going up against the top nations. I think when they would have seen England, if you look at it honestly, they'll love that. They'll go into it as the underdogs, nothing expected from them. So they'll thrive off that pressure. And and then facing the Netherlands and France is huge. So it is interesting. I think Suzy's hit the nail on the head. They were lucky last time round because they did get the luck of the draw. This time they haven't. Although I would argue they've tested themselves against the very, very best in this latest period, which Serena's been criticised for, but I think unfairly actually, because I think they're really good tests and it will set them up really, really well for what's a difficult draw.
You have to beat the best to be the best is the old cliche, Marva, isn't it? Host Switzerland automatically placed in Group A. You've got to go back to 2005, which is quite incredible, the last time that the hosts failed to reach the knockout stages. How are they going to view their chances under Pia Suntage?
Well, I think with that group, you can't ask for much better than that. Norway, you just never know what you're going to get with them. I think last Euros we thought we would had a hard group with Norway, and then we know how that turned out with that matchup. So no, they've got a relish in this. It's really exciting for them, and they didn't draw France, Netherlands, and England, so they can be happy with that and look ahead for what's to come.
Yeah. What else catches your eye, Suzy, of all the fixtures?
I mean, well, it's obviously Group D, right? But I suppose Group C, you've obviously got Germany and Sweden. I think Denmark aren't to be rested on particularly as well. But other than that, all of the interest is going to be Group D, I think. There's no competition there for which group is going to soak up attention. I'm curious to see what Norway can do. I think they're looking far more organised than they did at the last Euros, where everything collapsed a little bit. They've never really got the best out of this really impressive midfield and attack that they've got at their disposal. In a group like that, where they could potentially build up a decent head of steam, it might be quite interesting to see what they then do should they get to the knockouts. I'm not going to say they will guaranteed even from that group, because based on last time out, anything can happen. But yes, I'm sort of curious to see what they do. I mean, it should be fairly straightforward, Spain, shouldn't it? But we'll see.
Yeah. I was sent earlier, France, England, either in Zurich or Lucerne on the 5th of July, Saturday the 5th of July. Very exciting, and that is going to come round so quickly, isn't it? Right, let's look at the league now. Barclays WSL, full of drama this weekend. Marva, over to you, because we'll start with the upset of the weekend. Troubled Everton, sorry, Sophie wrote that, not me. Troubled Everton entertained Manchester City at Walton Hall Park. Obviously, Chelsea dropped points on the Saturday, which we'll discuss in a minute, but it was a perfect opportunity for Gareth Taylor's side to close the gap at the top of the table. But your team were having none of it. It finished Everton 2, Manchester City 1. Lucy Hope and Hanako Hayashi firing Everton into an unexpected 2-0 lead. Could have been more as well in the first half. A late penalty from Mary Fowler meant a tense final few minutes, but ultimately Brian Sorensen's side held on for a massive victory. I mean, look, the first time in 17 WSL games that Everton have beaten Manchester City, Marva. Just 20% of possession as well. Explain exactly how they got the job done.
That's a real one club mentality, that, isn't it? Sean Dyche is working his magic across the club. No, I mean, I think I'm still in shock. Not only at the result, but the performance as well. I know we joke about 20% possession, but that was a game plan. It didn't feel like a smash and grab. It didn't feel like 20% possession, but not deserved win. It was very much planned tactic, and I think Brian Sorensen got it completely right. And, I've been critical of him now and then, but I think we saw glimpses of that type of tactical performance against Liverpool in the derby, and against Arsenal, actually, where we got the point, but where the kind of aim was to have that low block and then look for the outlet ball, which when we play against teams where we're kind of more expected to win, we don't do that, and we just try and build out from the back, and then we end up losing the ball and losing the points. So it was so important to actually get points against, both Liverpool and Man City now, because if you're not getting the points against the teams you're expected to be, and you're putting in good performances in the bigger games, but you're not getting the points, and there's no point in it. But yeah, I sort of saw glimpses of it against Liverpool, where we were really using Tony Payne as an outlet, where we were using Lawley as an outlet, and this really came through in this game. And I think it was the perfect tactical matchup because, City just couldn't really deal with that pace. They couldn't deal with directness. I think they were in shock. I think in the first sort of 10 minutes, Noise had a chance where she just ran in a straight line, and they were sort of, all of City's defence were like, what's going on here? We kind of didn't expect this from Everton, and they seemed kind of shell-shocked, and then we scored. And like you said, we could have had about 4 in that first half. I was just watching, confused at how many chances we were creating, but it was just because we were playing direct, and that's what we've been missing so much in so many games, and we've only really pulled it out against certain clubs. And I think this is hopefully a sign for Sorensen that, this is actually the better way for us to play currently. While we don't have like a strong number 9 who can hold it up, and Snow East is better when she's facing towards goal rather than away from it and having to hold it up. That's not her game. And yeah, I thought Payne was excellent, even though I don't know what she was doing on that 1v1. Should have buried that. But other than that, she was excellent. Van Havermaet coming into centre mid rather than in defence, I think really, really helped us, because Hayashi has just been doing all the work for us in midfield. So some really, really good tactical changes that I was really impressed by, and yeah, massively impressed by the performance.
I can hear how excited you are about it. I love it. I love it when your team gets a good win and you can literally just explain the game in super speed. Watching it on replay in your head, because it has, Carla, been a really tough year actually for Brian Sorensen and his players as well. But this 3 points in particular, and the manner of the performance as well as the victory, is massive, and it moves them up to 9th. They've obviously got the new owners on the horizon as well. Does it feel, and this is difficult to say because of the ownership problems that they've had in the past, but does it feel as if maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel for them?
I think so. And I think that performance on Sunday was a little bit reminiscent of 22-23 season, where first half of the season, they dominated the ball, they possessed the ball against most sides, but they had no end product in the final third. And around Christmas time, they started going a little bit more direct. And then they started picking up points and wins. And I feel that's how I felt at the weekend. They kind of went away from the Brian Sorensen way and were a little bit more direct. And I think that suited them. And that might be something they have to attack if they don't get the January window that they want. They might have to attack it in that way. And there's absolutely no problem with that. Obviously, Brian has a very clear way of playing. And don't get me wrong, when he gets it right, it's superb to watch. But sometimes when you've got a group of players that don't necessarily fit that style, you have to change. And I think what you saw at the weekend was him changing it, and it pay off.
Yeah, it did pay off for sure. Not so for Manchester City, and Everton have had, injury problems, but so have Man City at the moment. Alex Greenwood and Bunny Shaw both ruled out in midweek, but I still think that they've got a much stronger depth of squad to call upon, that's for sure, than Everton. This is what Gareth Taylor had to say. We looked a bit flat today, looked like a team that has played quite a few games recently, and we didn't seem to have much energy. Is that where it went wrong for them, Suzy? I mean, just 4 shots on target. We've seen this before when Bunny Shaw's not been available. They do look a little bit flat, but I mean, they had a real chance to close the gap, and they must be quite disappointed with the fact that they haven't capitalised on Chelsea dropping points.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be frustrating for sure. But the thing is it's not just the Bunny Shaw and Alex Greenwood, although I think Alex Greenwood is a really, really key one, because if you were going to argue where there was defensive weakness in that side, it would be at centre-back, right? Like in terms of depth at centre-back, when you've got Alexandria and Kennedy as your centre-back pairing, you're going to be a little bit concerned about that. There's not a huge amount of pace in that back pairing, or just technical quality in terms of the way Alex Greenwood is able to read a game, but also then build out from the back as well. So it's that, I think that injury is actually in many respects more significant than Bunny Shaw's, although obviously it'd be stupid to play down the impact of Bunny Shaw and Lauren Hemp as well. The fact that Chloe Kelly can't even get a start with all of those players out, I think is pretty damning about the relationship breakdown that's happened there. And I thought when she came on, she had an impact, but they've got depth in their squad, but not in the positions that really, really matter at centre back and centre forward. They're the key for them. And if you're not willing to play Chloe Kelly when Lauren Hemp and Bunny Shaw are out, then I think you're really kind of kicking yourself in the foot a little bit for no reason, because I don't think that Virginia, Fowler and Park together as experienced as Chloe Kelly in these kind of games that you just have to win when you're limping towards the winter break a little bit.
That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the new year. Maybe a fresh start potentially. Look, there was Chelsea will have been watching that game, having just taken away a point against Leicester, with a little bit of relief, I think, but disappointing. And we talked about the law of sod earlier. Sonia Bonpastor was going for 10 out of 10 in terms of wins, but the 100% winning run ended, Amandine Mikel's side pulling out the performance of the season for them. They took away really important draw against the title holders. It finished Leicester 1, Chelsea 1. Missy Goodwin shocking the visitors in the first half to give them a valuable lead. Just their third goal of the campaign, which I can't quite believe, bearing in mind it's the middle of December. But so much Chelsea pressure that they had to deal with Leicester, but Vika Captain ensured the points were shared with a fine finish right towards the end of the game. It was a brilliant defensive display from Leicester, Carla, and maybe not mentioned enough actually that they have got one of the best defences in the leagues outside of the top four. What did you make of their performance?
Yeah, I think they do deserve an awful lot of credit because, look, when you're facing a Chelsea side in the form they've been in, and let's be honest, they're in scintillating form, they're relentless at the moment. And the way that Leicester set up, and she spoke about it, didn't she, pre-match, and that she wanted to do something different, to sit that low and defending their way they did and close the gaps they did for 90 minutes, I think is, remarkable, and they deserve an awful lot of credit for that. They really do, because that's not easy. People talking about, yes, it is easy to defend and go and attack, of course, but to deal with that type of pressure, those types of movements, it's they deserve a huge amount of credit. And you saw them celebrate like a win, and you would do when so yeah, I think that you're right, it wasn't spoken about enough. It was all about Chelsea's woes, but I think Leicester need to be spoken about because the way they defended was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's just so easy, isn't it, always for the narrative to be about the big team. And we've done this on the pod this season, actually, because somebody flagged to us that actually we don't talk enough about the so-called smaller teams. And that feels patronising even saying that. But so we've changed things on our pod this season, haven't we, Suzy? And you actually described this game as David against Goliath in your match report. But I mean, it could just be such an enormous point. I know it's only a point, but wow, the battle against relegation, every single point counts, doesn't it? How much are they going to take from this going into the winter break?
Loads. Amandine Mikel said afterwards that it was like a huge point to take a point off of the champions. Obviously going into the winter break, you can't really ask for much more. She said she just sort of told them to go out there and just have a go, basically. And I mean, they did. They were just so well. There was so much defensive heart. That's what I really took from it, and that they're actually a really well coached side. I've not watched a huge amount of Leicester this season, in person. And obviously when you're watching on telly, the camera follows the ball a bit. So you don't really necessarily see sort of what's happening beyond, the little box that is pointed at it. But I was really impressed. And I feel like, the number of injuries they've got to their forward line with Naomi Mouchon, Jutta Rantala, Lena Peterman, they have no attack, right? They played Ruby Mace up front in one game. They were playing another midfielder up front in this game. They're really scraping the barrel. So I don't think too much can be taken from the fact that that's their third goal of the season in that context. But it sort of makes me excited for the second part of the season when they might potentially have a player back, or, I know some of them have long-term injuries, or they might be able to do something in the transfer window that just helps them stick something in front of the players that have been performing so defensively well. That's what is quite exciting for me, because I actually think, so far what we've seen, there are signs of a well-coached team and a really good coach, but we're not really being able to get the best out of them at the moment because they are just so hamstrung by those injuries to their forward line. They have no players. What can you do? That'll be fun.
It makes the draw even more impressive, doesn't it, when you list the amount of players that are out and the struggles that they've had. First bump in the road for Sonia Bonpastor's tenure so far. They dominated possession, but really wayward in front of goal. This is what she had to say. When we talk about ambitions, we need to turn our words into action, and I need the players to be ready from the start of the game. We didn't show our intentions and we got punished for that. I'm frustrated because we have the talent in the team and we didn't show it. The players need to realise this league is competitive and you don't show up from the beginning in every game. If you don't show up from the beginning in every game, you don't get good results. Pretty damning, actually, towards her players, Marva. Should that be a warning sign for some of them?
These are the standards Sonia has, right? You don't drop your first points now in December if you don't have those standards. So I think that's what she has to put forward to her team, and that's what she needs from her team if they're going to go for all the trophies that they can go for. But I think Chelsea fans shouldn't be too worried. You know, this is a little blip in the road. It's the first points dropped all season, which is absolutely insane. And we speak about injuries and we kind of often sort of gloss over Chelsea's just because their squad is so good that you kind of don't even realise. But you look at their midfield in this game and it's a very young midfield. I think fullbacks have been a slight problem for them in terms of defending on transition. You look at sort of Lucy Bronze, who didn't have her best game in this game. I think she's actually been pretty good this season, but I think she's been better when she's made to just stay back. And in this game, I think probably because they thought it was a Leicester and they could just kind of attack those the wide areas, that they could just go for it. And when you don't get that early goal, then you are kind of left quite exposed, and that's what happened. And I think they also got a bit shocked once they conceded that goal. But we've seen slight elements of this in previous performances. I thought Chelsea got a bit lucky against Brighton, even against Palace when they went on to win, what was it, 7-0 or whatever. Even in that first half, there were elements that you were going, oh, they've left a little bit exposed there, and against Villa as well. But they've always managed to score. And in this game, they just they had a few chances, a few long shots at the beginning, but they just didn't capitalise on it. And it's been that first kind of game where they then just sort of, it went against them. But I wouldn't be too worried if I was a Chelsea fan.
I thought it was interesting that one of the things she said afterwards as well, Sonia said afterwards, was that they just lacked a little bit of creativity, and that, you know, it was telling that the goal came from the captain basically just like taking it on and just going for it. And that's sort of what they needed. They needed players to just have a try a little bit and to try and make something happen. And no one was really doing that. They were sort of almost trying to work it into the net instead of just, you know, kind of attacking the box a little bit. And her drive to the edge of the area and then, like, you know, just hitting it was enough to give them that point. So, like, I thought that was an interesting point. I think maybe it's the time of the year. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the 3 games a week, but they just didn't look like they had that sort of creative bite to them. But I completely agree with Marva. I think this season there have been signs that defensively they can be got at, but no team has really capitalised on that necessarily at any point so far. So, huge.
I don't want to level an accusation with no proof on it, but you know the teams that you mentioned there that they struggled against or didn't have that creativity are teams that on paper you think immediately that they can easily beat. It feels like they're maybe up for the bigger games and not necessarily up for the games that, you know, maybe a little bit of complacency. Maybe.
I don't know, they still went on to beat Crystal Palace 7-0.
I know, well, yeah, but this is what I mean. After, you know, a bit of a shellacking in the dressing room, perhaps from Sonia.
I think we're just being really
hypercritical because they're so good.
Hypercritical because they're that good, but also like I just think me and Tom have done like, you know, mid-season, where are we at kind of piece that should come out at some point today or tomorrow, team by team. And I did the Chelsea one and I was just like, the context of this is wild, right? Look at where they are and what they've done in the context of a new manager, like having just been in for a couple of months and like, you know, new players coming in, and like they should be a team in transition. Any team that has gone through that stage is usually being given loads of leeway for results not quite going their way and stuff. And we're literally picking apart the minutiae of one dropped point and like a few, you know, this was the first time they've not led in a game all season, and yet like we're still picking apart some of those other results and saying defensively like you could see holes, which is true, right? Like it's all true, it's all analysis that is valid, but like it shows the quality that they have and the level that they're at that makes it like that kind of funny, I suppose, that we're having to really, really dig deep for it.
I'm looking at Carla's face and she's got her head in her hands. The media rubbing her temples.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because that's a compliment to Sonia and Chelsea, because she's come in and there hasn't been that transition moment, and it's quite funny listening because you sat there thinking, well, she's dropped 2 points in 10 games with a new squad. You know, she's flying in the Champions League, flying on all fronts, and you media giving her a hard time. Yeah,
listen, you're part of that now. You've crossed over to the dark side. Right, that's it for part 1. In part 2, we look at the rest of the weekend's action and catch up on some significant management changes. Welcome back to part 2 of the Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Now, it's been quite a turbulent week in Birmingham, hasn't it, with a big management change ahead of the winter break. Before Aston Villa's League Cup match against Charlton midweek, it was announced that Robert DePauw had left the club with immediate effect. Whether he had China in his hands at the time, I have absolutely no idea and cannot comment. Before we get on to the weekend's results, you and Tom broke the news, Suzy. What can you update us on the situation?
There's not much to update on. Obviously, he left amid concerns about the way he spoke to players, including about their appearance. Obviously, me and Tom worked on the story together, many sources, many strong sources. And I think there's more to come from the story. Obviously, we don't necessarily know the details of what has happened and, kind of the processes that have taken place to get them to this point. So I think there's definitely more to come from the story.
Important to say that he's refuted the allegations at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, he has. He posted on X before deleting it that the allegations were disgusting, and they told me the English media could be this low, but I never make comments about players' appearances as a former social worker and father of a daughter. I'm disgusted by people who would do this. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, without a doubt, watching with interest for sure. Sean Goater has been put in interim charge while the club start their recruitment process, but it was Aston Villa's second win at Villa Park. It finished Aston Villa 3, West Ham 1. Adriana Leon returning to the starting lineup for only the second time this season. She made an instant impact as well, scoring inside 4 minutes. Vivian Asai responded for the visitors before Leon restored her side's lead just before the break. Kenza Dali made short of the 3 points in the second half, meaning Villa are up to 7th in the table. And it was quite an entertaining encounter, actually, Carla, wasn't it? Both sides created a similar amount of chances. What do you think got Villa over the line, and what have you made of them?
Yeah, look, they've struggled, haven't they? But up until the weekend, I think they showed a bite about them. I thought bringing Kenza and Dree back in was absolutely the right decision. I think they give you something different, and I think Kenza's numbers over the years since I signed her have just been phenomenal, and someone that was ever present in my team, and as was Dree. So they're top players. They make the team tick. They're a different dynamic, and surprising for them not to play many minutes so far. But look, I think they were hungry, weren't they? You could see, even when they walked out the tunnel, you could see with the way they walked out there, they wanted to go out there and show everyone why they should be playing. And credit to them, I think they were the difference on the day.
How hard is it watching your team, bearing in mind you were up there pushing to kind of upset the top 3, if you like, when you were in charge at Villa? How hard is it watching everything that you've built kind of adjust so significantly this season?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think I joked at the start of the season saying I didn't want them to beat our top 5 record. But then actually seeing them struggle early on, that was difficult because I have a lot of care and love for a lot of the players and staff, and still have really good relationships with a lot of people there. So it was tough, and I was kind of a mum to a lot of them. So of course, then you get them, you keep in contact with them. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because you just want them to do well, and seeing them struggle was tough. But look, they obviously Robert's gone, and I think they'll really investigate now what it looks like and what happens next. But one thing I will say is they've got an incredible board and people that really genuinely care. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks or says. They have, alongside Unai, they have Monchi and Darmian that are sensational, really support the women's, have shown that, have backed that, and they really care about it. So this will be an important period, and I think it'll come fruition that, what they do next will show that how much they do care.
Yeah, agreed. Good things going on behind the scenes at the club itself. Disappointing again, though, Marva, for West Ham, and you could see how frustrating it was for Rianne Skinner. Vivian Asai's goal disallowed in the first half, that would have put them ahead and changed the momentum a little bit. How's she going to be looking at the result and more widely the first half of the season, bearing in mind we've got Tom and Suzy's dissection of that coming up? They've struggled a little bit, haven't they?
They have, but and maybe it was just my low expectations for them for this season, but they have actually surpassed what I thought they were going to do. I thought, the first few games I was quite worried for them, and it seemed like they were going to be really sort of down there in the relegation battle, and obviously it's still so close between about 6 teams. One win just puts you right up the table, so they're not completely out of it or anything. But I have still been quite impressed by their ability to score goals, because you look at some of the other teams, you look at Leicester, you look at Everton, we're teams that are struggling to do that. And they've got some key talent, which I think is really going to help pull them through. And you saw it in this game as well. They didn't get the win, they didn't get the draw, but I thought Gori has been so good for them. And it was a real shame when she got injured towards the end of last season, because I think that they really struggled without her. And she's really showing what she can do. Asay, we know what she can do. Pavia I've been really excited by as well. And I think we know that Rianne's can build a very good defensive team and organised team. And if you have that and then just a few players who can bring you that technical ability, I think they're not looking as much in a bad position as I thought they might be. However, games like this are where you want to pick up points with the teams that you're competing with, and it was a shame for them to have that goal disallowed and then not go on to get any points. But I'm not as worried for them as I was at the beginning of the season. I think they're showing that they've got enough to be okay. But then we keep saying that about lots of teams now. Every time we think they're like dead and buried, we're like, I think they'll be okay. Someone's not going to be okay. So.
Listen, we're eternally optimistic on this pod, although our predictions are terrible. So we could get the first ever season where about 4 teams get relegated.
Exactly. Who knows?
Arsenal continued their winning streak under Renee Slagers to make sure that they capitalised on Chelsea and Manchester City's failings this weekend. Couldn't have gone more perfect for you, Suzy. Finished Liverpool 0, Arsenal 1, thanks to another goal from Alessia Russo, her 5th in 5 games and the 4th in the space of a week as well. This is what she had to say about that. I'm feeling good. I'm just enjoying my football. I play my best when I'm happy and enjoying football, which seems to be a bit of a theme for the Arsenal players at the moment, Suzy.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone better. Obviously, Mariana Caldente's penalty could have gone in. That would have helped. Just make it that little bit easy. But Alessia Russo is looking in phenomenal form, which is obviously good news for England. I think the way the team's set up under Jonas, I don't think it necessarily got the best out of her. She drops deep a lot, she moves wide a lot, and the way the team is sort of set up around her now sort of forces her to stay in the middle a little bit, because the quality of the players around the outside of her is so strong, and then you've got players coming up on the overlap. The Mish doesn't need to do that. And the players behind her, are sort of close to her. So they're almost like boxing her in on all sides and forcing her to stay quite central, which is really great to see, because I think that's what she needs. It made me think a little bit about Ellen White and England, and when Phil Neville said that she needed to stay between the width of the posts just that little bit more, because often you would see like less serious like drift deep or wide, and the ball get into the box and there just be no one there to pick it up. And either you have to have the rotation amongst the front three, that people kind of swapping positions a little bit, or you've got to have her stay in there. And I think that we're sort of seeing her get the service she needs instead of having to go searching for it a little bit, which is obviously it's going to feel good, right? Like when you're essentially doing less work to get the ball and able to get in the back of the net more, you're going to start feeling like things are going right for you.
I feel like we're also giving an update every week, and there is no update to be had in terms of who's going to take over permanently. But Sani has sent us a message on social media saying, well, Arsenal fans have to keep singing Last Christmas, ending with, I'll give it to Renee Slagers. I mean, it doesn't work, but it kind of does in a very weird way. Even into the new year. What say you, Suzy Wrack, as an Arsenal fan?
I think I said it before on the pod, I really like the way they're looking and what she's doing, but and I think one of the turning points that sort of led to Jonas going was the fact that they were really struggling against teams that set up in a low block against them, and they've had a really good run against teams that essentially do that and done very well. But I would like to see her have it maybe to the end of the season, or at least till sort of the 3/4 mark or something like that, basically, because I really want to see how she would do in those games at the end of January, start of February against Chelsea and City, back-to-back away games. For me, that would be a bit of a deciding factor. I mean, you don't necessarily want to say, 2 games would be the difference, but I think then you're getting a little bit more of an idea of how her teams are going to cope, because you will have had, obviously the end of the Champions League campaign, like the Champions League group campaign. You have, this run against teams sort of below them, and then you would see them tested against, the two above them, also both away. That for me feels like a really good audition, but who knows?
It's a live audition though. I find it very interesting for a club like Arsenal to be giving a manager a live audition.
I mean, they may just hire someone over Christmas, right? Like, let's face it, like that's where it points, so who knows what's going to happen.
Well,
but I've enjoyed her tenure so far.
Yes, me too as a neutral. Carla, they've got a really big match against Bayern Munich coming in midweek. Suzy mentioned it, they needed to really capitalise a bit more on their chances to make the win more comfortable, but at the end of the day they got the result over the line and saved themselves a little bit for Bayern.
Yeah, and I think, look, you can't underestimate the power of man management, and she's come in and clearly done that. You listen to any player and they talk about playing with a smile on their face, right? So it's something I'm big on. It's something that people just don't see that side of the game. The more you can create an environment for players to feel confident and believe, which is huge, the more you're going to get out of them. And she's getting a tune out of them right now. I would like her to keep her. I would like to see her keep her job. I'd love to keep her see a job, because you can see the players buy into her, and that is so important. But going into Bayern, yes, it's a test. But the way they're playing, they'll be confident. They'll be fearless. They'll go into it with huge belief. I have no doubt. You can see that she's installed that into them. So fascinated to see what happens. Yes, there's tests to come up, but there's no denying whatsoever that she has installed a belief and a confidence into them and guide them. And a couple of people throughout my career have said to me, average players need coaching, good players need guiding. And I think what you're seeing is Rennie Sagers guide them to a belief that they can go and beat anyone.
Yeah, I like that. A guide. That's what it should be. Players got to have their responsibilities as well, and you kind of shape them and point them in the right direction. Really tough period for Liverpool at the minute, Marva. You're going to have to give them some love, I'm afraid, much as you that's going to really, really hurt you. I mean, look, they're also injury hampered, so you must have a little bit of empathy for them in that way. Poor run of results as well. Matt Beard did say there was light at the end of the tunnel in terms of their injuries, but also said there's not going to be much money to spend in the January window, which must be pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I'll put aside my professionalism just quickly on just one point, in that I love that Matt Beard did brought up all the decisions that have gone against him this season in his post-match interview. I was like, sorry, Matt Beard. But aside from that, I'll go back to being professional now. No, I do feel for them in that sense, because they haven't had the biggest squad. They sold a lot of their squad players over the summer as well. They haven't had much money to bring in that depth. Obviously bringing Smith was great, but they haven't had that depth to really help them in these difficult periods for them. It must be frustrating for Matt Beard as well, because I feel like even in this game, and we saw it against Chelsea as well, where they've set up pretty well. They've done kind of a lot of the hard work. You know what they're trying to do. They're just trying to frustrate Arsenal. They're trying to frustrate Chelsea. And then in both games, they've just had sort of lapses of concentration, which has then ultimately led to losing the points. And it must be quite frustrating for the whole team when, you're all trying to be there together. You've got your injuries, you're up against a difficult team. But to put in that kind of tactical performance, you need to be on it from minute 0 to the very, very end. And in this game, obviously the penalty didn't come off, but that's a lapse of concentration. And then even just like going for the second ball for that goal, it's just, a corner, not a very good corner, that bounces off a few people, and Russo's the first to react. And that must be quite frustrating when what you have to do in that game, especially against a team like Arsenal, is just defend for your lives. And they sort of did that. They didn't do too badly as a whole. I thought they looked organised, but you can't then just, not go for that second ball in a moment like that. And now your whole game plan is out the window. And they didn't really create much either. I think they had sort of 2 shots, 1 on target. So if you're not going to, really go for it in that sense, then you have to be on it defensively. And they weren't this weekend.
No, they weren't. Fifth played sixth on Saturday night, finished Brighton 1. Tottenham 1, Bethany England putting Spurs into the lead, but Marissa Oleslager responded late, making sure Brighton carry their unbeaten home form into the new year. They've had a great start, haven't they? And both managers actually talked about how evenly matched the two sides were, Suzy, which kind of played out. Will either of them be happier with that result?
I think arguably Brighton will be the happier, purely because after Beth England had given them the lead, they could have gone 2 up pretty rapidly and didn't, and then they were able to come back into it and get the point. So from that point of view, they'd be happier. But on the other hand, Spurs have clawed a couple of points back on them in the table. So, you'd say that, they'd potentially be happy. They're probably both a little bit happy and a little bit unhappy, right?
How those splinters in your bum. You all right?
Well, yeah, but it's true, right? They're, neither of them are going to be that delighted about dropping points to the team that is, very, very close to them in the table. And, arguably Tottenham should have put the game to bed before Brighton pulled one back. So
I think Brighton will be happier, Suzy. Come on.
You think Brighton?
Get off the yeah, 100%. They've had a great start to the season. They do not want to go into Christmas in a break, in a lull, after having been so successful in the first half of the season. 100% they will be happier because, arguably Tottenham could have been out of sight.
They could have.
They could have. It was that's a fascinating battle between those two teams actually this season.
I thought you meant between me and Carla.
Yeah, I mean that is also. I feel like nobody else could get involved here somehow. Last game of the weekend to wrap up, Manchester United beating quite a stubborn Crystal Palace to make sure they stay level on points with Arsenal going into the winter break, beating them by a 1-0. Grace Clinton with the only goal of the game. Deep into first half injury time. Actually, Carla, Manchester United's defence has kind of been the story of the first half of their season. They've got the meanest in the league, which is quite impressive. And this was another example of maybe where they've been lacking at the other end of the pitch, despite getting another important win. Just 3 shots on target, which I'm sure they'll be disappointed with.
100% there will be. I think I alluded to this a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about Manchester United, the biggest brand in world football, and an organisation that breeds attacking style football. Which, whether you're an under-8, whether you're a men's player, women's player, academy player, it doesn't matter. There's an expectation at Manchester United to play a free-flowing attacking style of play, and I think that yes, you can. That's where I think the frustration comes from, maybe, but I think after Christmas, there'll be absolutely no doubt that, they'll be looking at how they can be more creative, how they can be more on the front foot. Because, yes, you know what, they've been solid at the back. But there will be a concern, 100%. I think that'll be the first thing you look at as a manager. How can we be better in that final third? But they need to be. If they're going to, push for, a top 3 spot, they're going to have to be better in front of goal, of course.
I need to give Crystal Palace some love as well. I just think they are a really, really well coached side. I really like what Laura's done with them. I think they're greater than the sum of their parts. The fact that they've taken the lead in 4 of their 5 last games, I want to say it is, I may be getting that stat slightly wrong, shows the potential there. And the fact that they've kept it really competitive at that bottom end of the table is really, really exciting for me. The fact that you've got 6th and 5th separated by as many points as 6th and 12th, and 1st and 2nd. I just really like that it's not easy for teams at the bottom at the moment because they're doing such a good job. And I like a couple of players, a little bit of sort of WSL level experience or international experience coming into that side could make a big difference. I think we said it last week after the West Ham game that, they need a Katrina Gorey type player, someone with that level of experience coming into that side that can just bring that young team together and provide a little bit of impetus to it and just elevate them that little bit. I feel like they could have a really strong second half of the season if a player of that kind of caliber recognises that something quite special is going on there. And we have to go into the winter break being quite excited about that because there aren't many other races to get excited about in the WSL table at the moment.
Well, we wanted a more competitive league, didn't we? For sure. And it feels like it's the gap's closing slightly and it's getting a bit better, and I'm sure it will only improve. I want to finish with, not finish completely, but just finish the WSL part of the pod with a really lovely email that we got from Grace. She sent us an email on Women's Football Weekly at theguardian.com. Hi everyone, my name's Grace and I started watching women's football, especially the WSL, last year after a home World Cup in New Zealand and watching England play in the final. I listen to your podcast every night cooking dinner, and we're wondering a few things about the top three-ish, she's put in brackets. So Marva, see if you can answer some of these questions for Grace. For Arsenal, do you think Renee Slagers will continue to rotate between Van Domselaar and Zinsberger, or has a clear number one emerged? For City, has Lauren Hemp's injury highlighted that the team are too dependent on her and Shaw, or am I imagining things? And at Chelsea, with the news that Sam Kerr won't be back until at least February, March next year, do you have any idea on how she's going to fit back into the squad, especially as Bon Pastor has been so successful and Kerr hasn't played under her yet? Thanks so much, and I heart your pod. Well, we heart your email, Grace. Thank you very much. Marva, can you remember all three of those?
I was going to say, it feels like a Christmas pub quiz. All right, number one, in terms of the games that they've been playing in, it does seem that Van Domselaar is the number one, but that the rotation comes with that, and I think that is a healthy thing to have if it isn't too distracting for the goalkeepers. And I think if they sort of know their place in that, and I think Chelsea do that really well, where they have over many years, we saw it with Emma Hayes as well, where yes, they have rotation of goalkeepers, which keeps things fresh, which keeps their second choice goalkeeper happy to an extent, as long as you're getting minutes in enough cups. But that you sort of still kind of know who is preferred for the bigger games. That's what I sort of get from this decision with Van Domselaar and Zinsberger. But we will see. And I think it does depend on how many cups you're in, because if you then aren't in many and you're only in the league and only one player gets to play, then it gets a bit difficult. Question number two.
Hemp and Shaw, which we kind of mentioned Shaw already, but I think it has highlighted the fact that they're too dependent on her and Bunny Shaw. I can answer that for you, Grace. I think we're seeing that for definite. And then we've mentioned on the pod before about Sam Kerr, haven't we, and how she fits back into this squad. It's going to be really difficult, but can't leave a player like Sam Kerr out, can you?
We said this in previous seasons as well, where like Chelsea have good squad depth and they're not playing her, but you go, do they even need Sam Kerr? And then she comes in and she's just so world class that it's just not even a question. I think it's just going to be how they fit in. They've just got so many good players. I mean, Lauren James still got to come back into this team. It's just actually unfair. I say this every time I'm on the pod.
The luxury is that they can like ease her back in gently, right? They don't have to thrust her back in and can like really manage her like return, which like I think not every player returning from an ACL necessarily gets.
Yeah, agreed. I hope that answers your questions, Grace. Thank you again for your email. If anyone wants to send in some emails during the winter break for us to read out and answer in January, it's Women's Football Weekly at theguardian.com. Right, the Barclays Championship returned for the final time before the break, despite Bristol City's 5-0 win over Durham, drawing them level on points at the top. Birmingham's goalless draw with Charlton made sure that they continue to lead the pack going into Christmas. Elsewhere, London City Lionesses kept up the chase with a 3-1 victory over Southampton, while Portsmouth earned their second point of the season with a 2-2 draw away to Sunderland. As they go into the break, just 5 points separate first from eighth. I'll tell Carla this in case she's not listened this season. I love this league. I just love it. So excited. It's just brilliant. First from eighth, 5 points separate them and 4 points separate the bottom three. Just makes for such a brilliant league, Suzy.
Yeah, I've been saying I want to sack off the title race in the WSL to follow the relegation battle because it's more exciting, like the relegation battle and the championship, because like just the fact that you've got Bristol putting 5 past Durham and them only being separated by the point in the league, and then Birmingham dropping points and 1 point separating the top 4, like that is just brilliant fun, right? Like it's just, no team has gone unbeaten. Birmingham and Bristol both have 2 defeats, and then it's like 2 and 3 from there all the way down until you get to sort of 9th, 10th, 11th. If you're talking about competitive balance, they've got a much better competitive balance than WSL has, because it's a much more, like I say, evenly funded crowd of teams, relatively speaking. Just really enjoyable. Just like, that is a really enjoyable thing when things are unpredictable. That's what we love about football. That's why we love football. That's why we reject all attempts to, stop promotion and relegation and bring in European Super Leagues that close things off and stuff like that, because it ruins the unpredictability of the game.
Yes, it does indeed. It ruins the drama. Graham's asked us on X, is anyone looking most likely to come up from the Championship? And then he's put in brackets, cheeky, sorry, WSL 2. Looks impossible to call at this stage. Who do you reckon, Carla?
Do you know what? It is really interesting. I'm looking at it here. The top 8, yeah, there's 5 points between them. There's no surprise, by the way, because they're all funded very well. And the bottom 3 aren't. So I think, that you usually end up realistically where you've spent. But I just don't know. I think I did say at the start of the season, so sure I should stick to it, Birmingham or London City. I think it will come down to one of those two.
I agree. Exciting. That's what I know. As is the Women's League Cup, which has a new sponsor. It was announced on Monday that Subway has become the new title partner in a multi-year deal. Insert your sandwich-based puns here. I did put nibble into the intro. That was as far as I could kind of go. It's just going to be really weird not calling it Conti Cup for a long time. And well done, Continental Tires, for making sure that you constantly, forever, just like the Sony Awards, end up getting a sponsorship name. But brilliant news to get this one over the line, for sure. The draw for the quarterfinals and semi-finals was also made. Manchester United host Manchester City. The winner will play the Brighton. The winner will play the Brighton. No, that doesn't make any sense. The winner will play the winner of Brighton and Arsenal, is what I mean. Meanwhile, Tottenham play West Ham. And Durham are going to make the long trip down to Chelsea. And those 2 winners will meet in the semi-finals, with the final being played at Pride Park on the 15th of March. Now, we have mentioned it a couple of times, but there's been some big management news in the last week. On Wednesday, it was announced that the FAI wouldn't be renewing Eileen Gleeson's contract following the Republic of Ireland's failure to qualify for Euro 2025. The Scottish FA followed suit with the announcement that Pedro Martinez Losa will be leaving his role after Scotland missed out on their 3rd major tournament in a row. What did you make of both of these decisions, Marva?
I think Pedro was coming. I think a lot of Scottish fans have not been happy for a while, so that I was not surprised by. I think Eileen, it was a very, very close one. I don't think they played very well in those 2 games against Wales, and their whole point is to qualify for the Euros, which they didn't do. So you can understand, but it's still a bit more surprising, because I think they were still building something there together. But interesting to see who's going to be next.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, this is going to be our final show of 2024. We've got our own winter break, but we will be back in the new year when the women's game returns from the winter break. I tell you what, we could have played winter break bingo today in the pod. I feel like it's been mentioned constantly. I think we're all limping towards it, aren't we, for sure. What are your plans over the festive period, Carla?
Mostly out with the little one. I think, just pantomimes and Christmas grottos, seeing Santa plenty of times, all these million Santa. I mean, how do you keep telling a child that Santa lives in the North Pole, yet you keep taking them to grottos and they look different every time?
They don't care. They're getting a present every time. They're like, oh my God, how stupid do you think I am? But I get a present, so it's fine.
I know. She did say to me the other day, I know that Santa's not real, Mummy, because Santa is at the North Pole getting my presents ready. I said, exactly, darling. That is exactly correct. So, yeah, lots of kid stuff. Best time of the year. I love it. I'm just a big kid when it comes to this time of the year. So, yeah, enjoy it.
Yep, absolutely. Suzy, what are you up to?
Well, stupidly redecorating my office, which is why I'm sat in front of the Christmas tree instead of in my office. And yeah, lots of fun stuff with the kid and the occasional deeper investigation that a winter break affords us as journalists. ...
Marva?
Basically nothing, which is lovely. My twin baby nieces, who are only 1 year old, are coming over for Christmas, so that's going to be very, very cute. And yeah, just doing absolutely nothing, which I can't wait for.
Amazing, amazing. Well, everybody have a wonderful Christmas. Hope Santa brings you everything that you desire. Lovely to see you all. Happy New Year as well. We'll see you in the new year. Keep having your say by sending in your questions via X or emailing us at womensfootballweekly@theguardian.com. And as ever, a reminder to sign up for our weekly women's football newsletter. All you need to do is search Moving the Goalposts Sign Up. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly is produced by Sophie Downey and Silas Gray. Music composition was by Laura Iredale. Our executive producer is Sal Armat. Jingle bells.
This is The Guardian.